Welcome everybody to the latest Greyhound Star Zoom. I'm joined by Paul Carpenter, who has also put his name forward to be the Greyhound Board Practitioner of the Greyhound Board Practitioner role, having spoken yesterday to Tom Stedman. Now, I'm very conscious, I've known Paul for quite a while, and I'm very conscious that I'm trying to keep these talks roughly level time, but there is so much to Paul's kind of background that even just covering it very, very briefly, we may run slightly over. Welcome, Paul. Good to see you.
Good morning. Yeah, good to see you, Floyd. Good to see you.
Okay. I'm going to race through the kind of your ownership background as quickly as I can because there is a lot of it. First thing I didn't realise, having listened to your podcast with Barry Drake, is that you were originally an owner with Gary Baggs, a dear
yes,
old
many years ago at Walthamstow. Yeah, there's a picture over my right shoulder.
Yes.
That's up on the wall there. That was in the podcast. I mentioned a dog called Droopy's Phil. That's him, and he was on the front of the Ultimate Greyhound book that a lady up at Monmore kindly sent me a picture of the cover, and that's Phil. That's him.
Yeah, I knew I got to know Gary very well at when I was in the
Yeah,
post
nice
office
man.
at Cambridge. Yeah, lovely
Lovely
guy.
man.
So badly missed.
And Gary actually sold him on the podcast. I said it, but Vinnie Jones came to the kennel at that time, and he was looking for a dog, and I was looking to try and buy something else. And Gary said sometimes you have to turn them over or move them on and do whatever you need to do. And Vinnie bought Phil, and I learned managed to tell the tale, which was quite good. No, but Vinnie had some fun with him, but no, he's a lovely man, Gary. Lovely man.
Very much so. Very briefly, we could talk about some of your successes as an owner. We could talk about Roman Empire or Clondoti Alex or Ewan Jacko. Personally, being a little bit perverse, I would rather go to the Rosseranger that you sold off of Beans. Or the fact that you turned down Droopy's verdict.
Yeah, turned down
like a shot.
Farlow verdicts were turned down like a shot. Sold Rosseranger for 800 quid, having paid 8 grand for him. Ricky Holloway then bought him, and Ian Wills sold him for 10 grand, I think. So that dog changed hands, I think, for 18 grand, and I got 800 quid and didn't even get a cup of tea. So it wasn't my greatest business moment, but there you are. But he turned out decent. I've enjoyed it I've been an owner for 30 years now. I've just retired, so I've got a little bit of time on my hand. I found the pandemic and the retirement and isolation and being stuck indoors hard to live with. Background, just quick bio. I was in the logistics field for all my working life at a reasonably senior level, regional director level. For 2 of the largest freight forwarding courier companies in the world. I got into the sport as a young boy, left school at 16. I'm now 67, no qualifications, not a sausage as far as GCEs or O-levels or anything. And I was often in either the bowling alley, the snooker hall, or a betting shop or a dog track. So that was kind of my background, and I started out just in an office, Floyd, really, and worked my way up. I think my life experiences and my experience, enthusiasm, passion for the sport, whatever you want to call it, my related life experiences make me an ideal candidate. Yes, I've been an owner for a long time. I've experienced the highs and lows. You touched on Roman Empire. It didn't all start with those. I had modest A11 graders and A10 and worked my way up, and then first open class dogs. Yes, I've been very lucky to have some nice dogs and win some Cat 1s and all the rest of it. And I've learned that the sport throws a lot of downs at you, Floyd, so you really have to celebrate the ups when they come along. We've had some nice victories with Marco, Alex, Holden Rio, Jacko obviously won a couple of Cat 1s, Alex won the Yarmouth Derby. But losing, I would give all those back gladly if I could have saved Roman Empire. That actually broke my heart.
Very much. I mean,
Broke
you
my
you,
heart.
you you said when we've spoken previously, you said you've never had a greyhound put to sleep.
No, never ever.
All your dogs, but certainly
Everyone,
should we say unnecessary reasons or on life.
everyone's been homed. Roman Empire. I mean, Ernie did everything he could with Roman Empire. He ended up at the Royal College of Veterinary Surgeons, and when they told us that he had lymphoma, and that he only had a very short time to live, yeah, to push, when Ernie rung me, that I got emotional now. That was tough. It doesn't come any harder than that. It wasn't the fact that he was potentially an absolute superstar. It was the fact that he was just a lovely natured dog, and that took me. I cried my eyes out for a week. So whether that makes me, that makes me. But there you are.
Okay, I want to talk specifically now about the owner's role. Now, one of the things I've already faced a little bit of, I don't know, something that was pointed out to me yesterday was that there is no description of this role, so you're pretty much going into it blind, which again in business isn't something you'd have been used to. You would have had projects and you would have had incentives and goals to go for.
Sure.
How do you view the role, or how would you view the role if you were to get voted in?
Bloody hard. I'm under no illusion. All owners, I think, have a different perception, Floyd, of how being an owner is valued by the sport and the GBGB. The reality is probably totally different. Perception of most owners that they're not listened to. Their ideas are ignored. I think the GBGB and the owners rep need to change that perception and engage more with owners. I hope to be able to assist in that if elected. As for a manifesto, Floyd, I don't want to promise anything I can't deliver, because that's just pointless. If I set myself unachievable goals, then I'm just going to get down on myself, and that's crazy. As you rightly said, there's no job description for it. There's nothing written down anywhere. There's no performance measurements, KPIs or whatever. So you're going to go in there blind. Hopefully Peter will hold my hand if it is me, and we'll go from there. I'm sure I'll learn a lot from the very first board meeting. Owners need a voice. That's very, very clear. Sadly, JC never really had a great rapport with the owners. For whatever reason, he's a great man, John Coleman. I had dogs with him a long time ago. He probably knows more about greyhound racing than I'll ever know. But it wasn't, maybe the communication side of it maybe wasn't his thing, and the communication is going to be key to everything. I've also put in my application that I've got to be allowed to communicate with the people that I'm representing. I know there's going to be times where they're going to put the handcuffs on or whatever you want to call it and things like that, and people have said to me, oh, you won't be allowed to do this, you won't be allowed to do that. Well, I might not be allowed to do certain things, but bottom line is I'm willing to give it a go. If there's 6,000-8,000 owners in the UK and only 2 people have put their names forward, then that's a sad endorsement of the sport that we're in. So I've already said I feel it's vital that whoever fills the role must be allowed to report back. Open, transparent communication is something that Mark Bird preaches. I hope it's something that I can do, because it's been clearly missing. I do feel a constructive use of social media can help, and I want to make this very clear, Floyd. Tom mentioned a couple of words yesterday in his Zoom call that is absolutely of no interest to me at all. And I'm not even going to mention the words, but I will use Twitter, email, and a good old-fashioned thing called a telephone. If people want to speak to me, they can ring me. Simple as that. So I'm going to go in there. I'll work with Peter. I'll maybe shake a few trees. We'll see what falls out, and then we'll go from there. I have no preconceived idea of what I want to do. I just want I just want to be I just want to be a very open communicator, open door policy, be visible. I'm prepared to give everyone a chance, Floyd, to have their say respectfully. And I would always be prepared to listen to an alternative view. I also appreciate and respect that some things discussed at the board levels are probably going to have to remain confidential. But I feel my reputation within the sport is responsible, caring, passionate. I'm an owner who wants to see the sport flourish. I think I can bring some value and integrity to it. And I think that would assist the owners I'll be representing, while making an effective contribution to hopefully the growth of the sport. My first point of call, having spoken to Peter, we'll try and get the owners and trainers more aligned. I think the owners rep and trainers rep working in tandem can make a difference, providing the fellow directors are fair-minded enough to welcome some innovative ideas and opinions. You know, I think Peter's worked extremely hard in the role, Floyd, and I think he should be applauded for that. And if I can perhaps do something for the owners similar to what he's done for the trainers, then I'll feel as though I've achieved something.
Very much so. I mean, I'm glad, to be honest. I get some abuse, or I get.
Hang on, this bit's just for Ian Fortune. Hang on, I'm gonna just gotta. Sorry. Oh, this bit's for the Racing Post, and I know you'll appreciate that. There you go. Sorry, carry on. Sorry, yeah, okay. I apologise.
No, no, I'm pleased to hear from both yourself and Tom that, you know, this idea that you know, owners don't feel particularly listened to, and that I'm quite often labelled by people, I believe, within the board, who think I'm just out there stirring trouble. Clearly, that isn't the case, and you know, they don't like criticism. They don't like to be brought to task, and or let's shut Greyhound Star down because it's a troublemaker. I don't think so. I think we're giving the opportunity to people like yourself to speak. I noticed a couple of things that you had suggested or thought about, and that was a more direct ownership involvement, even in some of the mechanisms within the board. For, I believe it was, well, you can talk me through it.
Yeah, I'd asked. I wanted to try and get hold of a family tree as such, to see who sat where and what. There's loads of committees called on the board, Floyd. There's loads of them, and there's loads of people sit on different ones. But there's a rules review committee, and there is a open race planning committee, which I understand at the moment. I might be wrong about this, but I don't think the owners representative sits on either of those boards. I think the owners should be represented on both those committees. So that's something that I actually put in my application. I tried to get into the application the grounds on which I was standing for, and I wanted them to commit to that. And then hopefully they would see that, you know, while I respect the wishes of the board and some things, you know, I want them to know that I'm not going to go in there and just nod my head. It's not my way. But I think, as I said to you earlier, you know, off camera, I have mellowed a little bit. So I think that will help me, because I know there's going to be frustrations, and I know I'm going to have to take those on the chin and just, you know, just keep punching, because it's, if I do this and I do get elected, you know, I want to give it a good shot. There's no point in me going in there for 2 or 3 months and then turning around and saying, no, it's not for me. But you're representing a lot of people, and you know, without putting too fine a point on it, because it's not the be all and end all, but this is unpaid, Floyd. You know, there's no salary here. I'm sure you'll get your expenses covered and that sort of stuff. But so if the keyboard warriors come at me, just bear that in mind. There's a lot of work, and I thought Tom was very brave for sticking his head up, and I think I'm brave for sticking mine up. But you know, I'll give it a go. And people have got to realise that, you know, the owners pay a lot of bills, and there probably aren't the perks in the sport for the owners that maybe the horse racing owners get. I know JK recently touched on that in an article in the Post. There's obviously questions to ask about prize money, other various different things. You know, maybe we can do that on another Zoom, but you know, tactical seeding, traps, trap draws. These are all things, track preparation, you know, just quickly, it always baffles the life out of me how you can have two tracks not an hour apart to get the same weather, and one's -70 and one's normal. That baffles me. I've never really quite grasped that. I'm not a track expert, so I really should keep those comments to myself. But I can remember when Toaster first opened, Floyd, you know, Kevin Ackerman put an owner's bar in there, which I thought was brilliant. And it was lovely. You had TVs in there, comfortable settees and chairs, and they were doing free teas and coffees. And, you know, there was a program in there ready for you when you got there, and you'd sit down and you'd meet all the other owners, and you'd have a chat and watch the racing and have a drink. I mean, that just made you feel like, you know, you were valued. And I think all those things have kind of fallen by the wayside. I'd like to see tracks value owners a little bit more, give them something like an owners area, you know, I think Hove has a few owners evenings and stuff like that. But I think there is an awful lot more that promoters, tracks can do. They need to be a little bit more entrepreneurial. We've got to find some new audiences from somewhere, and we've got to get them through the gates. And once we've got them in there, we've got to give them a good evening, and we've got to give them good service, a good product, good facilities, good food, and hopefully they'll come back. But then they'll bring people with them. And there's lots of ways to sell this sport, whether it's telling the stories, make the greyhounds the stars, you know, put the owners out there, get them on TV, do Zoom calls like this. And the more we can do, the podcast I did with Barry Drake and the way the Irish set it up, yeah, I mean, I love it. We can learn a lot from them. They obviously produce wonderful greyhounds, otherwise we wouldn't be in the state we are in the Derby. we're going to struggle, I fear. And you know, I'd like to get a few English dogs so that we could go back to Mr. Fortune and say, maybe you're not such a slam dunk this year, Ian. But we'll see. But all of those things I think are important. And I don't believe the sport is necessarily as underfunded as the consensus would have us believe. There's things like that. I've got to find out where the media rights money's going, and I don't understand why, you know, there's this money that's, you know, paid to the trainers for producing a dog which is actually owned by the owners, and they don't get any money out of it. So that's maybe for another time. I'd like to see, I know people will disagree with this, but graded racing and open racing have to complement each other. But I'd still like to see more one-off open races. I think the prize money is awful. I think, you know, you've got to get a £300 win money, £75 run money. I don't think it's unreasonable. I'd like to see a novice program set up if they're going to push for, you know, more British breeding, which I think is a great idea. I'd love to see more puppy races. You know, I was talking to Ernie yesterday, and they've got a litter of Chop Chop Hope pups there that are schooled. And now Ernie said he's got nowhere to go with them. He's got to take them to Romford, and he's got to grade them. But now you're going to get, you know, a puppy that's a baby going to be going in with all age dogs in graded racing. And I think that's wrong. And I think they've got to find a solution to so that they can run against dogs of their own age, commensurate with their own ability. You can't just throw them straight in. You know, it's wrong. So I think there should be novice races, puppy races like they used to have at Walthamstow. And while we're talking about graded racing, there's too much of it, Floyd. Too much graded racing. You know, I know they've got to have it, but the bookmakers and the promoters own the sport, and you know, if I do get the job and I can get in there and the trainers and the owners can be aligned through Peter and myself, then maybe we can try and get some of that power back the other way and change a few things.
Wonderful. I'm going to conclude this in a second, because I'm quite conscious. I wouldn't want it. Even now, I'm aware that this is going to get dragged on quite a bit longer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I
No,
talked
no,
too much.
not at all, not at all. There was so much. I would have shut you up if you were if you weren't saying interesting things.
Cheers.
That leads to one of my points. First of all, I would very much like you to join me on some future Zooms, whether or not you're voted in as the owner. Because I think you have a lot of interesting things to say. So if you would agree to that, I would very much appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure.
Okay. Secondly, I do think it's fair. Just you made reference to the owners' bars. I mean, Entain have done a very good job, particularly at Hove. But I do think that they are the leaders in this. You know that they have put a lot of time and effort in, and that bar at Hove is very, very good. And my final point, and you know, we've already spoken. I know that you said that you'd be pleased to work with Tom one way or another.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is this. I so admire both of you for standing up and saying, well, do you know what? There are other things I could be doing with my life, but I feel passionate enough about this that I will put myself out. I'm not going to just tolerate people having a dig every time that something doesn't go quite their way and then try to blame you. You're you're entering into a very, very difficult situation. Whichever of you gets the role, it's an almost impossible task. But I admire you so much for giving it a go, and you know, thank you for that. And
no, you're my pleasure. I feel welfare. I've got to say this. I promised myself that not everybody will agree with me, but I think despite the pandemic and all the stuff that's gone on with the sport and DCMS and the things that Mark Bird has had to do, I feel he and the GBGB have made considerable progress, Floyd, since he became MD. The improvements achieved in welfare and the homing of retired dogs has been outstanding, and I think that should be applauded. I think the ambassadors are doing a great job at Toaster with the meet and greets and the people there, Gail and Mark and Carly and all the other people involved with that. I think they're doing a wonderful job. I personally feel welfare must remain the focal point as public perception of the sport is vital for its future. I think that's critical. We've got to keep the antis at bay. I think the industry's fractured. And unless we get people, you know, working together rather than pulling in different directions, I think we're going to struggle. So that's another key point. That's why I want to work with Peter and try and get some uniformity in there. I know there's a few owners that are very unhappy with the sport and are thinking of leaving. We've got to try and turn them around. I think that's pretty much about it as far as a manifesto goes. If you ask most owners and enthusiasts what they find most exciting about the sport, they'll probably tell you it's open racing. The open racing creates stars. The stars are then can be followed by the people, the public, the papers, the press. Without the stars, you've got no sport. So I hope we can continue to deliver dogs. I hope the breeders keep breeding. That will all be linked in with prize money. So you know that's where we're at. Owners and trainers contribute significantly to our sport, and in my opinion, it only seems fair that bookmakers should share that responsibility. Hopefully, going forward, they will. The 0.6% they put in at the moment, Floyd, is of the betting turnover. Realistically, is laughable. Sorry, but there you go. I hope people have learned a little bit about me from this. So welfare, open racing, graded racing, they've got to complement each other. Owners need to feel more engaged with the sport, and I think it's time for us all to pull together, forget our self-interest and do something in a way to treat all participants, owners, fairly and equally. So should I be selected? Yeah, that's what I'll be trying to do. I'd like to close by saying that I'm under absolutely no illusion whatsoever how hard this will be, but I'm up for it.